Yeah.
Okay. Hey, folks. Welcome to episode 177 of the WP Roundtable show. I'm here with my good pal, Joe Howard. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm good, man. I'm glad to be here. I've listened to a bunch of episodes, so it's kind of just it's cool to be on, man. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I gotta say, not too many guests open up and say like I've listened to this worst promoted show in the industry.
Hey, man, I you're a friend, man. I gotta tune in. I gotta check it out. There's always something funny about listening to a podcast, and then it comes up in your podcast feed, and it says your name, and you're like, "Whoa,
Cool.
crazy!" Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
There's something fun about that, and it's. I aspire to maybe make this as good as the Walking Marvin podcast someday, maybe.
Oh, you know about the Walking Marvin podcast. Oh, so
Of
you're one of the
course.
people. You're one of the downloads I see every week. Oh, cool, cool, cool. I have like 4 downloads on it, so man, I'm happy that you enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I listened to it 4 times. So
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
that good.
So good. I had to take notes.
Yeah. Yeah, check out Walking Marvin on iTunes to learn more about Joe and his musings. Love it. All right. Joe is the founder and chief head master top elite buff, I guess,
It's the
of
exact
WP
title.
Buffs. Super buff. Or is there a fun hierarchy of like buffs?
I don't know if there's a hierarchy, but everybody kind of has buff in their title. So, like
Right.
Brenda is our content buff, and all of our technical people are technical buffs, and Nick's like our chief operations buff, which is just like a COO, and Dean's like customer success buff. So we're just kind of, when you have a company, you can make up the names of who, of titles. So
Yeah.
it's just our little thing that we do.
It seems really fun. I love the idea.
It is pretty fun. We really try not to take ourselves too seriously. We do serious work, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, and that's just part of it. I'm a very big proponent of when I started the business. Everyone works remotely, and I wanted the business to give everyone the advantages of both being a freelancer and being a full-time employee. So my thought was, why do people like freelancing? Well, they like the flexibility in their schedules, and they like to kind of be able to work when they want to and kind of be more output driven. But on the other side, people also like a full-time job because it provides stability in terms of salary. It provides healthcare benefits, and those kind of things. So that was kind of that was the thought when starting. It's like, how can we combine the advantages of both these things into one position? And that's kind of what we're trying to do. What we've done, what we're on the road to doing, and kind of have done so far, but are always iterating.
Yeah.
And part of that fun, and what we do here is just things like people's titles and making sure people have unlimited vacay and have each other's backs when they are on vacay, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's all good.
Right on, man. All right. Well, you're running a company called WP Buffs, which is a pretty dope little organization.
That's right.
We're gonna learn
Super
about
dope.
we're gonna learn about the background of this company and this guy named Joe. Real quick, before we do that, we're going to do something even quicker, and that's our quick picks of the week. This is where we both share something that we think is just worthy of being shared. And you know what? Mine's pretty simple. The other day, my wife was out of town, which is unusual. This happens quite rarely.
Nice,
And
guys.
I was home alone.
Guys party, huh?
I was left with the baby.
Slightly less of a party, different kind of party.
Different kind of party. We had a great time, me and that little girl. But she went to bed, and I was tired, like a little bit too tired to get anything productive done, but not tired enough quite to go to sleep yet. So I turned on the TV and shopped around for a show that I would like to watch, and I realized there's a whole new season of Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, it's amazing when you didn't know that it was coming out, and then you log into your TV, your Roku, your Netflix, and it's there.
There it is.
New season. Oh, guess I've got a show to watch.
It's
to binge
so
for the next
awesome.
8 hours.
Yes. I
Totally.
binged the first 3 or 4 seasons a year ago when our daughter was born. and I was on paternity leave, staying up half the night with her,
Yep.
and now here we are again. I've got
Back
another
again.
season, and
Come
I
full
watched the
circle.
first couple episodes, and I'm loving it just as good as it was. So check it out on whatever it's on, HBO, I guess.
I think it's HBO. I think you're right.
Yeah. What do you got to share, Joe?
I was actually going to share. So I'm like kind of like a business nerd, I guess. So usually things I share kind of like business centric. But I was just listening to another podcast. So I'm a big fan of the Indie Hackers podcast, and I was just listening to the episode with Nat Eliason. He has a kind of a varied history, mostly in like the SEO and content marketing space. And he's worked for different companies, Zapier, AppSumo, place like this. But I just thought it was a really enlightening episode. We do a bunch of content marketing at WP Buffs, and so hearing some of what he had to say, some of how he's grown his agency in ways that I never could. I used to do SEO as a service, and I just never could figure out how to scale it really well. And he's kind of cracked that idea. So if you're a listener to podcasts, which you probably are because you're listening to this, you should go over to indiehackers.com and check out the podcast there because it's pretty good. And they've got a bunch of awesome people on as well. So
Awesome.
it's just one of many.
Yeah. Great recommendation. Thanks, Joe.
You got it.
Check that out myself. Let's talk about your background, good sir. I want to learn
All right.
a little bit about your, origin story, I guess, if you will. I get tired of that, the obligatory origin story, and we try to make it a little more interesting and highlight the missing parts, because I'm sure you've been interviewed dozens and dozens of times elsewhere, and probably anybody tuning in already knows your traditional WordPress origin story. But maybe we could step back a little bit to the origins of your actual career when you didn't even know about WordPress. You didn't have a business of your own necessarily, but you did have a vision for the future of Joe Howard professionally. And you did begin to take your first step in a direction that you thought was right for you. Can you take us back to that moment and describe like what your path was?
Yeah, for sure. So I was what I like to call an accidental entrepreneur. Like I feel like I hear a lot of interviews with entrepreneurs, and they're like, when I was a young kid, I was selling lemonade and making websites when I was 15, and like I didn't really do any of that. And I kind of went the traditional route. Got through high school, went to college, and then was like, figuring out what I want to do after college. And not a lot of people know this about me. But I was a high school math teacher for a couple of years after graduating college.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And at this point, I had no relation to building websites and didn't even know what WordPress was. I was just recently graduated young man who went in to be a teacher. So taught for 2 years. And then so after 2 years, I decided to step away from teaching, and I enjoyed teaching, but I was teaching in DC public schools, and the environment there is super tough, super stressful, and I just made the decision if I wasn't giving my 100%, then it was probably time to step away, because that is what kids deserve, teachers who do that. So decided to step away, but it was kind of like I wasn't done looking for challenges, so I decided to figure out what I was going to do next. And honestly, I think the next job I got, I was just kind of like scouring Craigslist. I was like, let's look, like marketing. Like, I don't know, like, I guess I could do marketing. Do you need a degree to do this? It doesn't like sound like it. Like I did math, like I can do marketing. Like that's an easy transition, right? And I got hired at a small digital marketing agency. I was the first employee. So for everybody who like, first employee sounds so cool, but like in reality, the first employee is just like the person who like does everything. And so I was definitely trying to keep on my feet, learning everything about inbound marketing, SEO, because that's what we were doing at the agency. And that's when I found WordPress, man. I mean, that's what we were building with. It was a great combination of simple to set up, simple to build a good looking site, but also robust enough that you could do, some additional customization if you wanted to. We were just doing super basic stuff, setting up templates, maybe some like CSS changes, but mostly just pretty much templated sites because I didn't know anything different. And yeah, so that's kind of where I entered the WordPress space. Kind of like WordPress and digital marketing kind of came together and gave me that job. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. Okay. Pretty cool. So that doesn't sound like too many hops along the way to end up here.
Yeah, I found it kind of after my first job, and I kind of had it in the background for a while. So like it's 2018 now, and I didn't really like become really a part of the WordPress community or like go to my first meetup or especially my first WordCamp until like 3 years ago, maybe. So I was really kind of using WordPress as a tool to try and make money, I guess, but I never really knew the community aspect of it. And then like I went to my first meetup and my first WordCamp, and I was like, oh, like I get it now. Like this is awesome. Like I could like, I want to do this. Like this would be like, how cool would it be to have a job where I could just like hang out at these WordCamps all the time? Because WordCamp is a conference, but I feel like every time I tell people I'm going to a conference, they're like, oh, like you're going to network and like make deals. And it's just like super not like that at all. It's just kind of a bunch of nerds coming together to just like talk WordPress. And I love it. So as soon as I found that, I was like, oh, like WordPress is super cool. Like, oh, and the open source stuff's awesome too. So, just kind of, it could never get rid of me after that.
Were you on your own or still with the agency at that time?
So I hopped around a few marketing jobs, all kind of similar, like first employee, like, oh, you can like do some of this basic stuff. Like, let's try this out. And then I kind of pushed WordPress to the side, and I was like doing some freelancing and building websites, but I was working a 9 to 5. I got into consulting, and I'm here in DC, so there's a lot of kind of like consulting work around. And mine was doing federal government consulting. So I was helping on the user experience side, helping them take really old internal systems they had built, in the 90s, realizing how am I allowed to curse on this podcast? Is this a pro cursing? Non-cursing?
I don't.
Very crappy. They're super crappy sites and internal systems that they were using. And part of my job was to help with the UX refresh of that. And so I was doing that full time and doing freelancing on the side. So that was kind of the next step pre-WP Buffs.
Wow. Okay, so that sounds like a busy period of your life. You're hustling, doing the moonlighting thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but the work was pretty easy. Like my full-time job was like pretty easy. Like I don't want like, there were some hard aspects of it, I guess, but like I think there are a lot of people in the consulting world who like know this like potential like secret that it's like, yeah, you're doing a lot of work. I have friends like work for like McKinsey, and that's like you're traveling every day to like do really hardcore consulting. But like a lot of consulting here in DC, at least my experience of it, was that it is not super stressful. You do get a lot of flexibility in your schedule. You do get to work remotely. You do get to like kind of choose what work you do. And so I like those aspects of it, except that just kind of working for the government was not the best fit for me. I'll say that. And so I didn't like super enjoy it, although it paid well and it felt pretty cushy. So I stuck with it for a couple of years.
Sure. I'm sure you probably learned a lot in that time period and formed strong opinions about how things should be done in the early days.
Yeah, totally. I think this kind of comes back to why I feel like I'm an accidental entrepreneur, is because I never like had dreams to own my own company until I worked for someone else. And I think that sometimes I wish I'd had better experiences working for other people, because I don't think I'm a bad employee or like someone who would not fit working for a company. I just don't think I ever really found the right business or work to do. And I never really felt like authority over that work or accountability. I always felt like I was like given a task list, like these are the things you have to do. I didn't have any like sway in how the business was moving, or like big picture things. And I think that's what it came down to. Like, I want to be involved in like big decisions and like big picture stuff. And so I started WP Buffs on the side while I was consulting, and I did that for about 9 months, and eventually it got to the point where it was like, oh, I have to decide if I'm going to do this or not. And then my job made it really easy for me to make that decision because I got fired. So I was like, oh, perfect timing. I was just about to go to WP Buffs anyway. So I was going to continue consulting until I got married. I got married 2 years ago now, and I was going to keep consulting until after the wedding because we were like planning to pay for the wedding ourselves. So I was like, okay, I'll just like consult for a couple more months. And then 2 months before the wedding, they were like, so 70% of the UX team's getting let go today/tomorrow. And that's you. And so, sorry, no severance, just clean cut, which is how a lot of consulting jobs work in DC. Unfortunately, you're kind of an at-will employee. So it was, although I had planned to leave a little bit later and go to WP Buffs, it was kind of almost perfect timing because I was really planning to do it anyway. And yeah, here we are a couple of years later, and ta-da.
Well, that sounds amazing, actually.
Yeah, I should email my old boss and just tell him thank you again because best thing that ever happened to me.
That's funny. Okay, so 9 months is about the runway that you had to run WP Buffs on the side before it became your sole focus.
Yeah.
And then it was just Joe, for how long?
I already had other people working for the company before I even went full-time on it.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so I had some contractors working. I don't think I had any full-time employees at that time. So I actually think about this a lot. I think that a lot of founders or a lot of people who start businesses, a lot of people are, especially the technical people, they want to handle the technical part of things and really move it forward. And they feel like if handing off the technical piece is going to hurt the business. I also feel like this a lot about like just very smart people in general. Like they just want to do the thing because they feel like they're the best people to do it. I guess I felt, so I'm not technical. And so it was easy to hand off the technical part. And I got to focus on like the BD and the growth and like the digital marketing I learned at my previous jobs that I was, really starting to be good at. So I could help grow the business and then bring people in to help with the technical work. And I think that was actually to my advantage, being able to push that technical work to people on my team and have them handle it because, yeah, don't hire me for development work. I mean, it's just not my thing. But the team's awesome. People on the team are awesome at it, so that's why I think we're successful. We kind of, each have a role to play.
All right. So tell me a little bit about what WP Buffs was. The initial concept that you started, and is it like the same now in terms of like what you want it to be?
I don't know. I think that it's very different today than when it started, and it'll be much different in 2 years than it is today. Every business goes through different iterations, and a lot of it's just about that continuous feedback loop from customers. Customers may want 80% of the same things they want today in 2 years, but maybe 20% of those things will be different. So, that's our decision. Are we going to cater to those new things, or just kind of pull us too far away from our core competency? When WP Buffs started, it was, I don't know if I'd say a total mess, but it was kind of a mess. I think I set up all our, so WP Buffs does ongoing support for WordPress sites. So, we handle security, we handle website speed, we handle, edits to the website, we handle all the updates, the uptime monitoring. We're just kind of a part-time CTO. You pay a subscription service and you get our, expertise and ongoing support. But I think that I set that all up after the first customer signed up. I think someone signed up and was like, hey, like, this sounds great. He clicked the PayPal button because we still had PayPal buttons on our website. He was like, here's your money. Like, okay, let's get started. And I was like, oh, like onboarding. Okay, I'll just email him. Like that was onboarding. It was like me emailing him. And it was like backups. It was like, I guess we'll use Backup Buddy, uptime monitoring, like Uptime Robot. Like I was really like piecemealing all these things together, like after the fact, like trying to figure out what we were doing. But I knew that there was room for a solid service like this, and it was just like I had to put it together in a way that was scalable, and I always felt like I had time for that. So I felt like I had the ability to kind of put different services together. And I mean, in a sense, we still do that today. We don't have like a ton of proprietary software that like we developed. We use other people's software and we package it in a way that people need and is really useful to people. But yeah, that's kind of how it was in the early days. So it's funny thinking back then when we had 2 contractors working and we were trying to do 24/7 support, and it was just like, it was a little crazy, you know?
Oh, I'm sure. I can only imagine. I do love the selling it before you made the processes. I think that's amazing, and I love it. I'm a big fan of that, and I think too many people are afraid to do that, insisting on like building and polishing before shipping or before going live or ever making a web page public at all. What would you say after having experience doing that to someone who is struggling with this, like, I have to finish it before anything can be potentially visible to a customer?
I think it really depends what you're selling. So for us, it was kind of on the line for me because I'm a big proponent of like moving fast and like getting to 80% done and then shipping it in most cases. This was kind of on the line because it was like we were managing people's WordPress websites, which is a pretty big deal. So it made me a little nervous that we did that because I want to be able to run this business without crashing someone's website or like, having too many piecemeal things together and not really work. And so that was a little nerve-wracking for me. But I think if I were to do it over again, I would do it again. I think that it's important to be confident that it's important to like have somewhat of a plan together. It's not like I had no plan. I think I had some of these ideas about what I was going to do. And as long as you have that and you feel like confident in the fact that like you can get it figured out, I don't see anything wrong. Unless you're dealing with like a life or death situation. If you're doing that, then you're doing a 911 response, something like you should probably like have it fully tested before you launch it. But sure. I think you're totally right, man. Most things. One of the big things I feel like I've learned in this whole journey is that almost all my assumptions are wrong. Like, probably like seriously, man, like 90% plus of my assumptions are wrong. And it's not because I don't know things. And honestly, as I go farther in this entrepreneurial journey, I do find myself being able to peek around corners better and make better assumptions. But the most successful businesses aren't created based on assumptions. They're created based on talking with users or customers and really learning what they need and really being a part of their lives and the industry that they're in and creating a product or a service that like solves a huge pain point for them. And you can't do that without like having a few customers, especially ones who are in early, and like you have to figure it out. Like I think that was almost instrumental in like forming like how successful WP Buffs is today. And we've got 10 employees now. Like we do real 24/7 support across 6 or 7 different time zones at this point. We're 10 as of Thursday. So just this week we went to double digits, and things are like working incredibly now. So much so that I can take 3 weeks off, completely off the grid coming up here, and everything's going to be awesome. In fact, it'll probably get better without me like micromanaging stuff.
Probably get better.
Yeah, like get me out of the equation, man. Like they'll be like, thank you. No, I mean, I love the team. They're great. But yeah, that being said, like sometimes you just gotta like Nike it, there's something about doing that's just like you do, and then maybe you're successful. And if you're not, you learn something. And I know that's simple. I know everyone says that, but that's how most entrepreneurs become successful. They, even the successful ones have failed a bunch of stuff before they maybe have one successful enterprise, and still a lot of that's probably luck. So, sometimes you just got to do it.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, how many people out there have like gone live with their first thing and just regretted it because they were just so inundated with customers like pushing the limits of their application or their service, asking for every feature and more. Finding all the weak points on day one. Nobody has had that problem on their first attempt to take an offering to the world.
Totally.
We all just have the exact opposite, like crickets on our first try. And when
Absolutely.
we get that first customer, we often are like, man, I don't know, maybe over-engineered all this or something, or should have just waited until I got a customer to build the process.
Yeah. And so many, this kind of depends on what stage you're at too. So like I just read Rand Fishkin's book about him building Moz. It's a big SEO agency and product business. And he talks about how he doesn't always agree with like MVPs, which is like a minimum viable product. You put it out there, get testers, get users, and then improve it from user experience. But in his experience, he said they tried an MVP and it was a huge failure because they were a big company. And an MVP wasn't what they needed to launch at that point. They needed like a real, something real. But if you're just starting out, like the most valuable thing you can get is customer feedback. And probably number one thing you need to be getting and be talking with customers and interacting with them and finding out what they need and what they want and just everything about them. And another little secret, there are these people called like early adopters. And a lot of people don't even know that they're early adopters, or they don't feel like they don't know they are one until they become one, because most people are not expecting perfection. Like they're really not, but you do want to provide awesome support for people. So if something goes wrong, they get good support. We're not like 100% perfect on all our tickets. But if we mess something up, we have awesome support to take care of that. And people want that relationship with someone. So that's another reason I say, like, don't go towards perfection. You can fix a lot with support and support's how you talk with customers. So actually, I should probably be arguing that you don't want it to be perfect. You should literally try to not make it perfect so that you can talk with customers. I actually think that's right. That just came in, but that's totally what people should do. If you're too perfect, you won't get enough customer interaction. So you should probably make it a little crappy for your first one so you can practice.
All right. Quotable advice.
There you go. Yeah, you can quote me. You can quote me on that.
Yeah.
Tweet me at Joseph H. Howard. What are you talking about? Yeah, why would anybody want to make a crappy product? Well, maybe sometimes.
All right. You said you buried in all of that wisdom and gold. You said something a little outlandish, and I want to just jump on that. And like you've had some success growing a business that is sustainable, employs people, pays for their salaries and their bills and your own, and doing really cool things in the WordPress space and handling the needs of a lot of different important customers. Something to be proud of. But like financial metrics and other things aside, I think a lot of people would want to know, how did you grow and configure this business to a point where you, as the founder, feel comfortable disconnecting for 3 weeks?
3 weeks is a long time.
How did you pull that off to where you're comfortable doing it?
So it's super hilarious that you asked me right at this point, because I'm going offline for 3 weeks, but I come back and then 3 days later I go up to New York and I'm speaking at WordCamp New York this year. Hey, listeners, if you're in the New York area, you should buy a ticket to WordCamp New York. But the topic they picked for me, which I'd never given a talk on before, was the failures and successes of hiring a remote team. And I've been trying to sit down and put my slides together, my thoughts together, and it's just been like a whirlwind of complexity, because this is probably like the most complex thing I do, because people are freaking complicated. It's not, it's hard. It's really, really hard to optimize people and hire for the right people. It's compared to like the SEO stuff I did, and conversion optimization stuff, like that stuff's not too bad. But like getting people right, and especially multiple people on a team right, is super hard. I think I hired, when we were starting out, going back to those early days, I was definitely hiring people for their technical skills. And like, again, I was always pretty good at the digital marketing part. So like the regular growth was never that much of a problem. But then I needed people to come in and like do the technical work. And I definitely hired people who were good at the technical work or who could handle the technical work, but were not very good culture fits for what I wanted for someone who's growing a company. And I think that was a pretty significant mistake that I made. And it did result in me having to let go of about half the team. That was about a year and a half ago or so. And really switch around what I was doing in terms of hiring. And now the interview process is much more thorough. We have, a ton that goes in there, from first contact, sending them, a list of technical questions that they have to answer, getting them on the phone or getting them on a video call with not just me. And I ask all the, culture fit questions now. So I handle that part of the hiring, but Nick, our COO, who's like, COO is not, it's not even really fair to call him a COO because he's really a COO, like hybrid CTO. And he handles all the technical questions. And this is for a technical person, I guess. We're still working it. We're actually hiring a marketing person right now. So if you're listening and doing marketing, you should apply to that job. But I guess in all, I say we focus very much on the hiring process in terms of finding people who are going to be very, very good fits for our mission and our values as a company. And then also just on onboarding in terms of getting them to really get to meet the whole team and chat with the whole team. When you're working remotely, it's not as easy as like, everyone come into the meeting room, we're all here. It's you have to be very proactive about it. But it's something that's a really, really big focus of mine. It's probably takes up HR stuff is probably like 30-40% of what I do, because I've just realized that there's enormous value in gaining people's trust, getting them to trust you. The main thing we really say around here is like, we've got your back. We've got our customers' backs. Everyone on the team has each other's backs when people are taking off time or they have to step away. And that's like a huge piece of our culture, I think, now that I've had to repeat over and over again every day, and like bring in the right people who wanted to hear that stuff and who wanted to be a part of a team like that. And so, yeah, I think it's even more complicated than that. And again, it's why I kind of struggle in putting these slides together. But I think that's the basis of it. I think if you can get good people together who have each other's backs, you can get this kind of like 1 + 1 = 3 effect. And really, that makes me comfortable handing off a lot of stuff. And I already kind of talked about this a little bit, but I've handed off a ton more than just the technical stuff, because I brought in people who I think are just going to like do a better job of it than me. So like Nick's going to just like be better at like a COO sort of role and just making sure our operations are smooth from the technical perspective. And Dean's going to be, a little better at our inbound sales and our customer success stuff. So that's part of it too, is just bringing in people who are going to do a better job of it than you are, and to treat them well, and to, give them the kind of position that they want, and the rest kind of like somehow magically works itself out, at least in my perspective. So I'm very thankful that that's the case.
Right. Are you nervous about it at all?
No, I'm actually like super not nervous. I'm a very big believer. So like a lot of companies have this, like, we want to cater to millennials. So like, we're going to like have unlimited vacation. It's going to be awesome. And we do that too. But my thought about unlimited vacation is, so we actually urge people to take vacation. Like, we make people take vacation. So it's not like you can have a limited vacation and then like people don't take time off. Like, we make people take time off. But I really think that it's really important for a company, for everybody to take a significant amount of time off, because so like Nick was out for, 10 days or so last month. And it was amazing because he was able to take some time off to reboot, to have time to spend with his family and his wife. And, everyone needs that time. But it was also an advantage to our team in the long term, because other people had to step up. Other people had to step into that position. Other people had to make sure things were still getting done and the work was still getting done. And, nothing crazy went wrong. Maybe a few small things here and there, but everything was totally fine because we have this, positive culture at WP Buffs. And so I think it's just as important as it is, for someone who's just, a junior dev to me to take time off, because I'm actually really excited, because it gives me, like, I actually just had a meeting, talk with Nick earlier, and I was like, dude, you're going to be the head buff for 3 weeks. Like, the show is yours. You get to make these decisions. And honestly, he still gets to make a lot of decisions, because usually I'm like, yeah, you have great ideas. Like, we should do that. But now he gets to that kind of entrepreneurial feel, and like really running the business. And I think that's great for him, and everyone else kind of gets to step up too into different roles. So it's really good to have a, dynamic team that can be able to handle that. Because if I leave and the business crashes, like, that kind of sucks. So like, I can never go away. Like,
yeah.
So, and it takes time, right? It's not like it happened overnight. And when you're starting off, if you're planning to start like a real business, you should probably plan for the first year to like be pretty available like all the time. Like, there's this whole dream of like 4-hour work week, and in some ways, and maybe in very few businesses, you can really do that quickly. But I forgot about that a long time ago, because it's not super realistic. Like, if I want to grow, if we want to keep moving, it's just going to take more than 40 hours a week or 4 hours a week. Hopefully not more than 40. I don't want to work that much, but
I'm interested in this for a lot of reasons. I'm wondering, do you feel like you got lucky with good people who just happened to be okay with stepping up and taking on that bigger responsibility? And the reason I ask that is because I've had so many experiences with employees who wanted nothing less than to have to rise up to higher levels of responsibility. Like, it's actually really nice when you are maybe a comfortable employee in your position to be able to pass the buck up to somebody higher. And when you are in the higher up position, like you Joe, you're the head buff. You actually, the way businesses work, like, the hard stuff comes to you. This as a business owner, you don't get to do the easy things every day. And
can I just do one easy thing? Come on.
Yeah. No, that's what the employees get to do, Joe. Sorry. So, how did you find, or like train or instill into these employees that, like, this willingness to just like take on these roles, be leaders, just buy into the mission of WP Buffs? That's not something that everybody else is able to capture.
Yeah, I for sure get that. I think it's absolutely something we're always working on. I would never say we're like doing it perfectly right now. And there is no finish line. It's not like, okay, like, plant the flag. This is where we were always trying to go to, and we made it, so we don't have to do it anymore. I think, kind of going back to the mistakes I made earlier in terms of hiring people who were good technical fits but not good culture fits for what I wanted. It was just, I had to revisit that, and honestly, like, I had to take responsibility for that, because as the head of a business, no one else is going to do that. It's my job. I'm the only person who is going to do that, and so it's my responsibility too. I think in a lot of ways, I got lucky with my team. I think that there is a significant amount of luck in starting any company, but I think it's also kind of that, like, lean methodology framework that kind of people talk about. I hired people the wrong way, and then I kind of figured it out, and businesses go through different iterations, and most of it's just about, like, it's about figuring out the problems that are right in front of you and trying to execute to be able to fix them. And so, although I feel like I made some bad hires early, I have a hard time going back and like saying like that's something I wouldn't do, because it got us to where we are today. And I needed those people to like get through the next 3 to 6 months or whatever. And they did a good job. Technically they excelled. That's why our business kept growing, because people wanted more of it. But it's, and there's that book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It was kind of one of those situations. These guys got us here, but it's not what's going to get us there. And so kind of revamping the hiring structure and really focusing a lot on the person instead of just like the skills that they brought. So like the first thing I really always think of now is like, is this person going to like fit well in our team? And that's super important. And I guess one other thing I'll touch on is just that I guess I don't feel like everyone in our team like wants to be a leader. I think that it's hard to like hire a team of leaders because like, well, yeah, I guess that's just hard. And some people don't want to be like leaders. Some people want to do the execution day to day. And a lot of our developers are like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, our business that's the backbone of our business. It's like the people who can execute, right? And like, that's what moves our business forward. But there are also a few people who, I hired who have different ambitions and kind of more leadership-driven ambitions. And those are the kind of people, honestly, who I've met through the WordPress space. Nick was introduced to me by Adam Warner at SiteLock. So part of that was just me being part of the community. I'm a very big proponent of, if you're going to work in WordPress, you should be part of the community. It can only power your business even more. So it's why we sponsor WordCamps. It's why we attend WordCamps. It's why I speak at WordCamps. A lot of it's to give back to the community, which has given so much to me. But speaking at conferences is also a great recruiting tool. And it's a great way to meet other people in the space. And then when you're hiring, like hiring has become more difficult because now we're having to scale it faster. So that's like a different thing than like I have to hire someone every like 6 months. In 6 months from here, I may have to be hiring someone every month. But it becomes much easier when you're part of the WordPress space. You can kind of just send an email out saying like, hey, I'm hiring a new developer. Do you know anybody? And then like 4 people send you qualified candidates. And you're like, that was easy.
That's amazing.
And then hiring based on the people you already have on your team is also nice too. So we get a lot of like referrals from people on our team who are like, I know this guy. He's like lives down the street from me, but he's awesome. We've been friends for 7 years. Like he's a WordPress developer. I'm like, oh, well, that works. Ask him to apply. Ta-da.
Perfect. We talked a little bit earlier, and there's more I wish we could touch on that subject, but we can only like do so much. And,
yeah. A 7-hour podcast.
Yeah. That would be really, really great. We could kind of scratch the surface of the topics we're both interested in.
This is like the hardcore history episode of WordPress.
Right. That'd be great. If only. I'd be a part of that show. Speaking of shows to be a part of.
There you go.
You're interested in those. We talked about your fabulous Walking Marvin podcast, which is fun. But you're exploring some other opportunities. I mean, tell me a little bit about the why and the what of this next idea.
Will do. Thanks for leading us so casually into this piece of the conversation. I'm actually super excited about this. So again, WP Buffs, we manage WordPress websites, whether you're managing one website or 1,000. So small business owner owns a single website. We manage that website, subscription pricing, etc. Agency has 1,000 websites. We do a white label support through them. So we're able to do all the management of all those 1,000 sites through their company. And we're also starting to work with some bigger WordPress hosts in the space to push them into 24/7, as well as plugin companies. So kind of a lot of different support options there. But we have a pretty big email list, and we're really starting to find that not everyone wants to work with us directly, which is fine, right? Like you're never going to convert 100% of like your email subscribers to new customers. But we actually are taking that information and we said, not everyone wants to work with us, but a lot of people want to implement this in their own business. A lot of people want to sell ongoing maintenance for WordPress to make more predictable revenue. Because as an agency or a freelancer, you make $10,000 one month, great month. Then next month you make 1,000, and you're like broke again because the revenue is just so it's not very predictable when you're building websites. But you can manage websites and just focus on your MRR, your monthly recurring revenue. And so what we're putting together is a whole video course around this exact subject: how to influx. Or how to add ongoing maintenance plans to your offerings as an agency or a freelancer and make more predictable revenue. So you're making more money every single month, and it allows you to build a real business, a really scalable business, one that you can enjoy and doesn't have those down months that a lot of people experience. So yes, like you mentioned, so WPMRR.com is the destination. So MRR, monthly recurring revenue. WP, if you don't know what WP means, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast. but WPMRR is where we're building all this out. It's not open yet, but we're doing all the videos right now. We have some awesome guest speakers. We've got Channing Allen from Indie Hackers, Phil Dirksen from WP Simple Pay. We've got Brian Jackson from Kinsta. We've got like a host of people who I've met through the WordPress community. Ta-da, it comes back again. Who just are like super solid in all these areas and are able to contribute these awesome video lessons. And it's going to be a really kick-ass course. So anybody out there who's interested in doing that, WPMRR is the place to go. And we're definitely going to have you on, but as one of our podcast guests, because we're going to launch a podcast with it all about this exact topic. Let's figure out how to use WordPress to make predictable revenue, to build businesses that we're proud of and that we're able to step away from for 3 weeks. I feel very fortunate to be able to do that, but I want everybody to be able to do that. And I'm no genius, and it's definitely not rocket science. So I think there's a blueprint we can give everybody, and we're going to try and do that.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like an amazing project. I'm really excited about this course, and when people go there, what can they do? Can they opt into something, subscribe to it? Is there some kind of a projected launch date? I mean, what's the roadmap look like? Yes,
funny, you should ask. We do have the opportunity to opt into our email list. It's really just signing up for like an update when the course launches. I may send a few emails before that just to like send updates to people, like how the course is going. And honestly, like ask for people's feedback and like maybe some challenges you're having so that I can craft the course around you, the people who subscribe via email who are interested in the course. But you can grab, we've got an awesome like 25-page ebook, how to do professional maintenance yourself. And it also comes with a 30% course discount when we launch. So feel free to go check it out and opt in if you would like to. I promise my emails are super cool and not the kind that you'll just be like, ugh, who is this guy? Let's unsubscribe immediately. Like, you'll want to stick around because like I send cool emails. So
great, that's really cool. All right, so with our remaining brief period of time here, I gotta know. I don't care if anybody else tuning in just doesn't care about this, but I care.
Our conversation between us. This is all that matters.
You and me. Who cares if anybody tunes in, right? That's how I see it.
I'm sending this to my mom, so she's gonna listen and then she'll comment and then give you a 5-star review and all that. So we got one.
Well, hey, Joe's mom. Glad to have you as a listener / viewer. All right, Joe. Tell me a little bit about your itinerary, because I want to step up in the travel department. And this is a big deal to me. My wife and I are getting pretty serious about like making travel a part of our life, taking our little baby girl out and letting her grow up, seeing more places than we got to see when we grew up. We're talking about going on a fun trip, like living somewhere for a whole month next year, location to be determined. Like, how did you map out your itinerary for this 3-week trip, and what's on it?
The how I mapped out my itinerary for these 3 weeks is I married someone awesome who loves to do trip planning, and she pretty much planned the whole trip. I mean, that's all you have to do, everybody, is just find an awesome partner who just loves trip planning. I mean, that's how I did it. But
good hack.
In terms of just traveling in general, I love traveling. I love the fact that a big part of my job is traveling for WordCamps. I get to go across the U.S. I even got to go to WordCamp Europe in Serbia like 3 months ago, which was awesome. I really love that my job allows me to do these things, not only to go and experience the WordPress community kind of nationally and internationally, but also just to see new places. It's one of the reasons I really like working remotely. And I think a lot of our team feel the same way. Jason's one of our developers, and I think he's climbing Mount Fuji like right now. Like I think he's in Japan, and I think he's climbing Mount Fuji maybe as we speak. And it's awesome. We sent him like a flag that he's gonna like take a picture of this at the summit, like WP Buff. So I'm like super pumped to see that pic. But just in general, I super enjoy travel, and I think a lot of people who work remotely for us also feel the same way. They like to be able to opportunity to travel, to take time off, and honestly log in from secure Wi-Fi connection, like boot up their VPN and just kind of get to work. And I think that I think that a lot of people feel like, especially people who are in 9 to 5s, are like, that's impossible. Like that sounds, it sounds so far off. It sounds like almost foreign, like alien. And again, like I feel kind of lucky because I feel like I was an accidental entrepreneur. Like I never really liked another job, so I kind of created my own and just kind of fell into it. But looking back, I can tell myself that people think like if you want to like go and try and start a company, especially on the side of like a full-time job, a lot of people think in their head this is like a 9 out of 10 crazy scale, and it's like a 9 out of 10 like this is going to go south. But then you actually do it and you realize like for the most part that it's like a 3 out of 10, and it's like, yeah, like some stuff kind of sucks, and yeah, maybe you have to like watch your spending for a little bit. But I feel like for a lot of people that transition is not as difficult or as taxing or as stressful as you think it's going to be. And for me, creating a how do I say this? What do I want to say? I want to create a life where my work works around my life and not the other way around. I want my life is a priority. We only have so much time left, and I want to be able to do a lot of stuff in my life before it's all finished. And if I was just kind of working in an office for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, I don't know how happy I'd be. And so to end, thank you for firing me, my last job. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I would encourage more people to consider what it would really look like to fire yourself. And to, if you want to travel and work, it's possible. It's not just something that takes 10 years of work. You could do it. Maybe tough for a year, but next year you could be in the position where you're being successful. So never know.
Yeah, very encouraging. I like kind of wrapping up on that note because that's just really positive. So let me hit you with some of my wrap up questions here.
For sure.
Where are you going to be? Like what's on your calendar? Okay, so you mentioned WordCamp New York. We've got WordCamp US at some point. So where else might somebody bump into you for the foreseeable future?
Okay, yeah. So I'm totally offline for a few weeks coming up here, but right when I get back, I'm doing WordCamp New York. I haven't heard from WordCamp Philadelphia if I'm speaking or not, so probably shouldn't jinx myself, but I'll probably go regardless, and I hope I get picked. Joe Casabona, if you're listening. So I'll be at WordCamp Philadelphia. I'll definitely be at US. This was actually probably going to be the first year at US where we have like more than 2 team members at WordCamp. And so it's just kind of an exciting time where it's like our team's growing, and I see a lot of other bigger teams with like all these multiple people at WordCamps, and it feels good to be able to send a few people there. So if you're going to US, we'll see you there. If you're ever in DC and just like walking around Rock Creek Park, you'll like probably see me and Marvin, my dog, walking through. So that's another place you can find me if you want to be creepy. But yeah, those are the big things coming up. And always the WordPress DC meetup. If you're around, please say hi. I'm usually there.
Way cool. Do you have any really good suggestions for guests that I should have on this show in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a bunch, dude. I'll send you like a whole list of people. WordPress community is amazing. I don't know if I've listened to all 176 episodes before this.
I don't know if I could
name. I don't know if I could name the each guest you've had. But yeah, I mean, one person that comes to mind as someone who loves the WordPress space, love people who do WordPress, but also have this idea that building websites and a project-based system business model, it may not be the only way to do this, that maybe going a different route and doing more of the SaaS-based pricing model, maybe going more of a productized service than pure like, here's a project, here's how much it costs. I think that Channing Allen and his brother Cortland over at Indie Hackers would be awesome guests. They have talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of highly successful business owners now. And part of me feels like WordPress can be a little bit insular sometimes. Like a lot of people are like WordPress, like all in WordPress, but there's so much else out there that I think people can learn from. That and being a member of Indie Hackers and being and learning from other people, just pricing and doing different business models, like I have my hat to tip to that for the success of WP Buffs. I mean, without that business model, this would have been a totally different story and maybe a different interview here. But yeah, let me introduce you to those guys. I'll do that right when we get off here.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Well, that's about time to wrap it up. It's been a super fun discussion. And Joe, I think I'd like to extend an opportunity for you to say any parting thoughts or just how to get in touch with you if people are so inclined.
Parting thoughts. I don't know. Parting thoughts. Man, I just talked about so much. I'm like, what do I finish with? I think that WP Buffs has been, semi-successful up to the point where we've gotten to now. We've got a long way to go. It really is, I said that kind of Nike point before, just do it. There's a lot to be said for doing and learning. And, I guess I'll leave people with that. I think it's a very underrated area that a lot of people are afraid to dive into, especially like letting people down, like having a crappy product or having a crappy service. But you know what? Everyone sucks at everything until they get good at it. Just like think about when you were born, like you sucked at running. You couldn't even walk, you couldn't even stand up. And now like you can run, That's a kind of silly example, but you know what I mean? It's just like you're going to suck at it until you get good, and you get good by doing. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm online. Twitter is probably a good place to just, like, if you want to hit me up real quick, Joseph H. Howard. So it's 3 H's there in the middle. I go on some Twitter rants sometime. I just went on a Twitter rant earlier today. I wouldn't say rant. It was like I heard something cool, and it was just way too much for 280 characters. So I sent out 6 tweets about it. It was about that podcast I listened to about Nat. So if you want to hear someone talk about crazy business stuff, Twitter is probably a good place. And then WPBuffs.com. You got a whole team page. You got a whole map of where everyone is. Go check that out. And we're hiring, so you can check that out. And WPMRR, if you're a business owner already and you're like, man, why did I not make as much this month that I did last month? Then you should go to WPMRR and you should get 30% discount because you're missing out. You're missing out. That's a perfect place to go. So I'll just leave that little nugget there.
Perfect. That's awesome. I endorse everything.
Yes, everything is endorsed.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to episode 176. It's been real.
Yes.